All right, good morning.
Good morning.
Well, as you know, the Prime Minister is out of state attending the CARICOM Heads of Government meeting. So, should be back on Thursday, and he will resume his duties as Prime Minister. I think there's a lot we can talk about this morning, but I'll probably let you start by asking any questions that you may have. Sure.
My question is literally about the boundaries. Kind of heard that we make some new constituencies. I'm not sure if it's
Rosalie being
yes,
split.
Rosalie, your constituency,
Possibly.
You're throwing me out?
Possibly.
Right.
So I just wanted some kind of information on that.
Yeah. Well, in 2016, there was a proposal from the Constituency and Boundaries Commission to alter the boundaries in St. Lucia. As you know, the Constitution provides that I think every 7 years there should be a review and recommendations made for the establishment of constituency boundaries in St. Lucia. A proposal was adopted then by the Commission, supported by both parties before the 2016 election. I think it was in 2015. Subsequent to that, former Representative Guy Joseph did file a motion against it, saying that it was going to prejudice him. The case has gone on. First there was a procedural motion, which he lost eventually. And the case itself, the substantive case, has still not been heard yet. But of course, since then, 7 years has passed, because that was 2015, and there was supposed to be another review in 2022. So because the Constitution says no more than 7 years, you have to do a review of the boundaries. We've not had boundary changes in St. Lucia for 50 years. Just think about that. The last major change we had was in 1974, when we moved from 10 constituencies to 17. We've had little realignments along the way. So we are due for a review of the constituency boundaries. And like I said, it's on the table. There are discussions taking place as to what the boundaries should be. If you just imagine, Rosalie is by far the largest constituency. Rosalie is many times the size of Dennery South, and certainly larger than the next largest, which I think is Castries South East. I think the largest constituencies are Rosalie, Castries South East, Castries East, Barbono, in terms of population size. So there has to be. So I guess once the census report is released and will give us a sense of what the population spread is, because according to the Constitution, it's not voters, it's the population of the districts, not voters, not registered voters, population of the districts. So once we get the census report, we can then decide what's the best arrangement. And the Constitution says you should try to approximate equal number in every constituency, subject to population, transportation network, and a number of criteria. But it really calls upon you to have as equal as possible the number of people living in a constituency. And we know you're totally off, because Rosalie by itself is the size of many other constituencies. So yes, the answer is we have to do it constitutionally to review the boundaries.
Can we see that happening before the next election? And what are the concerns from the current administration as it relates to, how would that affect them going into the
Well, it's up to the commission. The commission comprises, 5 persons, chaired by the speaker, and 2 nominated by the leader of the opposition, 2 by the prime minister. And they will decide, and they will advise Parliament through the Speaker. So if they decide there should be no changes, there will be no changes. And if they decide there should be changes, it will be presented to the House for debate, and we can or not accept what they recommend.
Concerns from a party perspective on if it's proposed that Rosalie is to be separated in 2, 3, for Castries South East, Castries South East, what are the concerns as the deputy?
Well, I have no concerns really. I mean, elections are elections to be fought, and if they reduce constituencies, if they increase it, that's just what's before you, and you have to deal with it. Only recently I was watching news in England. In fact, there was just a by-election in England 2 weeks ago, and if you do some research on it, that constituency will not exist in the general election because of the realignments that will take place in England. So imagine somebody winning a seat 2 weeks ago who need to be told by the time they call the general election, your constituency will no longer exist. But that's the reality. So no matter what comes before us, we have to deal with it. As political parties, you strive to win as many seats as you can, and that's just what it is.
Some observers would worry about gerrymandering. I'm thinking that people might cut it just to favor a political party. And what would you say to that?
No, we don't believe in gerrymandering. In case it's a commission that has to make the recommendation, and the commission has to present a viable proposal which has to be debated by the House, and that report has to be made public. So if somebody says, take out this area from that area and put it in another area, well, we've had gerrymandering in the past in St. Lucia. I mean, if you look at some constituencies, PAI sometimes has been in Labrie, and sometimes has been in Roselle. Foster Jacques has swung. I mean, there have been attempts to take out certain communities and put them in certain constituencies to try to sway the voters. But generally in St. Lucia, we don't have gerrymandering. We don't have that. We've had a very, very distinguished record when it comes to voting and change of government. And I think we will certainly want to see that tradition kept alive in St. Lucia, that if there are going to be changes to the constituencies, that a proper report is prepared by the Commission and submitted to Parliament for debate.
Would you say there's been some economic factors involved? So from 74, there's been a rejection of so much. But has there been challenges? What is it that has hindered that kind of progress?
Well, I just think we've not been true to the Constitution, and it's exactly the point that was made. Governments might have been afraid that people will consider it gerrymandering and that you are changing it just to favor you. But that's not what it should be. The Constitution says no more than 7 years. Every cycle we have to review. It doesn't say we have to make changes, but we have to review, and therefore we should do so. That's what the Constitution requires, because a constituency that has 50,000 people, as against another that has 9,000 people, there's a vast difference.
So would that court case with the opposition? Commission, would that have to be solved before we move ahead?
No, I started off making the point that no matter what happens to that case, the 7-year cycle is back on, because it says no more than 7 years. So if the last change was proposed in 2015, we're supposed to have another 7 years, would be 2022. So we should have had already a review by the Commission. It's overdue. It says no more than 7 years. So it's overdue already. We have to do it.
I feel like a number of airlines are planning to increase airfare, I think, particularly from the European market for the summer. What are the concerns from a tourism perspective? How will that affect, if any, how will that affect these arrivals to St. Lucia, considering the successes we've had in record numbers?
Well, I think, as an industry that has some sensitivity to price, any significant increase in price will affect demand, and especially if you're speaking about Europe, which is going for its own economic challenges, particularly the United Kingdom, where inflation has not been reduced as quickly as other parts of the world. There will always be some effect. And as much as individuals are traveling like never before, especially since COVID, and it continues to grow, there's only so much people can take, because, especially when it comes to family travel, a family of 6 traveling for the summer vacation, an increase of £100 per person is an increase of £600, really. And it will have its effect. And of course, some of the room rates are also increasing. If you compare the room rates now to what they were before COVID, they too have increased. So you can understand the challenges people will face for traveling now. So we will always be watching very closely those developments. Already the rates to St. Lucia, the airfares to St. Lucia are high, but it reflects a lot the demand for the destination and the whole question of supply of equipment and crew and whatnot. So yes, we will always be concerned.
What are we doing to cushion the blow to ensure that it does not affect us significantly?
Well, I think there has to be a discussion of all stakeholders in terms of how can each contribute to make sure that St. Lucia remains competitive. Remember, in terms of just basic economics, you want to remain competitive. And therefore, you have to always figure out that you cannot allow yourself to fall out of the competitive range. And therefore, any thinking and response has to be to make sure that we are still in the forefront as a destination of choice.
In the regions, regional FA, they think of intercarrier expanding business, but then there has been some talk that we are trying to weave in some we say government be involved in this, or is that something?
No, I think St. Lucia has stated publicly its position is that we support all the private sector and public sector initiatives to improve connectivity in the region. And as a government, we are committed to supporting connectivity of the region. And once there is placed before the government a viable initiative, we will be prepared to support it.
There are plans for a ferry service to connect Barbados, Trinidad, and I think Guyana as well. For several years, there have been several proposals to connect St. Lucia and St. Vincent. Are there any plans to have something like that to connect the two islands? Are you aware of anything that is?
Yeah, there was a study done by the OECS, and at the last meeting I attended, the OECS Ministers of Tourism, and the next meeting will be in the next 2 to 3 weeks or so, where the OECS actually identified ferries that can be used to have that connectivity. So I will get an update at the next meeting. The issue was the financing of the ferries. So we will be looking at that.
Are there any plans to the escalated crime area designation that Beaufort had last year? Can we see that happening in any of the recent events?
In Beaufort?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Minister of National Security will be advised by the police and other security, personnel as to what's the best response. And I think we must always make the point. As a government, our position is clear. We are policy, the police is operation. The police decides what is the best responses from a law enforcement perspective that are needed from time to time based on the challenges. Our response was to make sure they have the resources and the capability and the support to make it happen. So, if it reaches a point where the police believes X, Y, and Z should be done, as mentioned by you, it is for ourselves as policymakers to respond and support them. We cannot tell the police what their operational responses should be. We can share the concerns of citizens with them. We can share with them the feeling that our population, the citizens, are expressing, and to ensure we push them to undertake the tasks in the most efficient and effective manner. And therefore, the government continues to do so. But you will not see us as a government operationalizing what has to be done. That's not our responsibility per se. But trust me, we are citizens and we have constituents and they speak to us. And we have to be able to say to the police, this is what our constituents are saying to us, this is what the public is saying. And for us to hear from them what are their responses and how they're going to deal with the situation. So we will continue to push the police to take the strongest possible action necessary to ensure that we have, safety and security in this country. And we operate, within the bonds of law, and we will always want to protect that. But the police has to respond and ensure that our citizens feel safe in this country.
Within the second half of last year, it was noted by the Prime Minister and Minister for National Security that we would have seen a decline in the rate. It was attributed to the actions taken by the police, and I guess the contributions from government to them support their work. So then, from since then, what has happened in the first 2 months of this year? Is it that they need to change? Did they change something? Or what is happening?
I think it's best for the police hierarchy to deal with those operational matters. I can tell you that the government continues to provide all the support necessary to the police, and the police can rest assured, and the public can rest assured, that the government is always willing to provide the resources and the support needed for them to be able to do their work. And all they need to do is to indicate to us what their needs are, and we will step up and provide it. But in terms of what may have happened or what's happening, I think it would be best if I leave it to the police to address those issues.
Minister, on the issue of crime, we understand that the police had an operation in Beaufort, and we learned this morning in a news report that police came under, not gunfire, but projectiles were sent after them, and so they had to seek refuge. Is the government concerned?
Well, I read a story which was carried in the Loop News, and I must say it's a shameful story. I think the image that is created and presented to the public is a little outrageous. It's just not true from all the reports that we've gotten, and I've gotten a briefing from the police as to what happened, and I think the story was really exaggerated. And I think, as much as persons want to make sure they can exercise their right to carry news and to present to the public what's happening in the country, we must also be mindful that how we write and how we express it can be harmful as well. And I am not taking anything away from the reporter who wrote it and the intent of the reporter, because they probably have no reason to believe there was any intent to be malicious. But when you read the story speaks about the police was under attack whilst undertaking an operation, and that the situation rapidly escalated. And it gives you the impression that the police was undertaking an operation, that the public and the citizens of Bruceville attacked the police, throwing projectiles at them, and they had to retreat. And that's not true. That is not true. From all the reports we have and all the evidence I have seen, the police undertook an operation, and the police exited the site. In exiting, somebody threw a projectile. It may be two. I was told one. And it, struck the police vehicle. I think it landed in the back of the police vehicle. There was no public that attacked the police. There was no escalation, and there was no retreat by the police. I can tell you, I would be very disappointed. I'm sure the Prime Minister and the government would be very disappointed if that had happened the way it was described in the story. And I think it's very unfortunate that Loop carried a story like that. And like I said, I'm not taking anything and not trying to present the intent of the reporter as anything else, but trying to carry the story in the best manner that he thinks. But it is wrong, and it should not be done in that way. And I think I have an issue with Loop News. Last week I had reason to complain about Loop News carrying a story that there was a travel advisory from the Canadian government against St. Lucia. And that was not true. Now you'd wish and you'd hope that Loop News is not going to descend into the depths of, misinformation and just sensationalizing everything for the sake of creating, I don't know if it's fear or if it's whatever, but it's just totally unnecessary. And I have a difficulty that we are facing challenging times. The media is supposed to carry information. The media is supposed to let the citizens know what's happening in the country. But equally, it has a responsibility to carry the stories in a manner which, best portrayed what happened, and certainly not to create unnecessary sensationalism. And I think that's what has happened. I think that's what Loop has found itself doing on the last two occasions. And I want to appeal to Look News to at least pay regard to the huge responsibility that they have on their shoulders as part of our democratic country. I mean, we are based on the free speech, on the right to persons conveying their sentiments and expressing their opinions. But let's also be mindful of the consequences of how we do it. This one was totally unnecessary. And again, I repeat, it was not true. That is not how it happened. And if you want to write it like a cowboy novel, the challenges we're facing in this country does not require us to be so lax, the latitude that we have when it comes to freedom of speech and freedom of expression of opinions.
So the police were able to carry out the operation they had set out?
The operation had ended. The police were leaving. The operation was never inhibited or hindered in any way. And that's from the information I have gotten and the evidence that was presented to me. So, the police was not stopped. And it's also a very poor reflection too on we know Bruceville has its challenges and its responsibilities, but if you read that story, you'll get the impression that the citizens of Bruceville are just a set of lawless people, that even when the police comes to try and put order in their community, they're attacking the police. That's how it comes across. So it's also unfair to the residents of Bruceville. And already they're facing very difficult times. They are traumatized by what's going on around them. To now present them to the rest of St. Lucia as residents who attack the police that come to put law and order in their own community. Think about that. What are you doing to an already traumatized community?
You said a projectile was sent. One, according to the report that was given to you, what was the projectile, and was this person arrested, apprehended?
The police will deal with it in the appropriate law enforcement practice.
Deputy Prime Minister, you just spoke about the trauma in which crime could cause, the impact it could have on a community. In wake of the rising gun violence, if you could appeal to the perpetrators of these crimes, what would you say?
Well, I think we need to make it very clear that, we have to understand the impact that crime has on our society. We need to be very clear that for our country to move forward, for us to ensure that our citizens can live civilized standards of living, that our society can develop, we need to ensure citizen safety. And the persons that are involved in criminal activity should take note that we are not going to surrender. We're not going to. It is challenging, it is difficult, but we're not going to give in. Because to do so is to lose our country, to lose exactly who we are as a people and what we exist for. So we have to control it. And persons that are involved in crime should take note that we're not going to surrender. It's not going to be easy. Certainly not when you have stories like what Look News carries. It's not going to be easy. But we are going to fight, and we are going to ensure that law-abiding citizens in this country can feel safe. And we are going through difficult times. But we are going to win this battle. This is not just about us. That's for the generations to come as well. Because if we cannot stop it now, think of what's going to happen in years to come. Think about it. So persons who are involved in criminal activity cannot be seen as our allies. They cannot be seen as persons that should get a free pass. They have to be held accountable. And we must support the police to make sure they have the capacity to be able to deal with those situations. I mean, all social problems individuals have, there must always be a way in which government can support them to ensure we address it. I'm not saying people don't have social problems, but we have to find a way as a government, as a society, to address those, social problems. But it cannot descend into total lawlessness and chaos. We will not allow that to happen.
Okay. As the broadcast minister for information and distribution, a bunch of questions. A few questions were asked, and you said you would leave it up to the police to respond. However, when we do reach out to the police for that information, we do not get that information. So
is it for national security reasons they're not giving it?
I'm not too sure.
Because you also have to be sensitive to the fact that there's not not everything can be shared
Do you
because,
understand ongoing investigations?
well, not just that, but sometimes responses, they have to be very aware of what they say. And again, like I said, maybe to engage them to also find out what are the limitations in sharing information. But I can convey to the police your sentiments that you believe as the media, they need to be more forthcoming with information.
Because it would prevent articles like what happened.
No, that's different. That one is a rush to be first.
Okay.
Let me tell you what happened. It's a rush to be first, and also a desire to be the most dramatic. No, it's true. That let me tell you, it's exactly that. It's almost, I don't want to describe it any further than that. Maybe, but there's no need to rush to be first. But in the media, you understand why that's done. Nobody wants the other station to carry the story first, and nobody wants to carry a story that appears to be boring. So you want to be dramatic, and you want to present. When you read the headlines, you woke up this morning, you saw those headlines. What? You're rushing to read. First line, police was under attack. What? You want to read, but there's no need for that. This is different. This is life and death. This is the destruction of our society. This is not a cricket match where you want to see how brilliant was a shot of a football game, how glorious was the free kick. That's not what it's about. This is life and death.
So, but in everything that's been said, like she said, this may be the reason why we get these issues. Yes, the media has a responsibility. I think last week I asked you about the Freedom of Information Act and the need for the sharing of information from government agencies. Critical, I think, operation was done last week where we saw the 12 guys being apprehended, being charged for one murder actually, which and it tells a bigger story of the gang warfare that's going on in this land. At this point, with everything that's happening, we see the country at 90 murders. This is unprecedented, of course. And it's something that is scary. And conversations with the people, especially those in the South, who not just seeing murders, but the fact is there's always this shootouts happening, though people may not be injured or may be injured, right? Is there a time, is this not the time to really engage the media in getting certain information out? For example, 12 guys were arrested. Who are these 12 guys? We don't have a face to put to all these names, right? We see the victims, but who are the people who are doing the things we don't see it?
Does the law allow for that to be done?
The law
I don't know.
The issue is, from what I have learned, is this is a failure on the part of the institutions themselves.
Okay, so you're saying to me, help me understand it, because I can't pretend I know the thing. So if somebody is charged and bail, you're saying the media should get the photo of the person to be able to show that person was
Once the
charged.
individual is charged,
You have to.
I think the
No thing.
No.
Tell me.
Okay, based on the last police press conference, that issue came up, and based on what the police said, you cannot identify individuals unless they are formally charged for obvious reasons. However, even after these individuals are charged, we don't get a mugshot or.
All right. So what I can do is arrange for the police to have a session with you, and let's establish an understanding of how we deal with those issues. Because trust me, I myself am a citizen, and sometimes I want to know more than what I read, especially when I read local news. I always want to know if I'm reading the truth, So you can imagine, I agree with you. We can have a very clear, and I would suggest it to the Minister of National Security when he comes back, and to the police commissioner, to sit with the media and almost have a working session of how do we address those issues, because the first two broadcasts and the most dramatic story can't really work for us.
Before talking about
Can I take the last question, because I have
so,
cabinet.
the constituency with a port of entry, or international airport is down there. Is there anything additional that is being done that you know of, maybe in your portfolio as Minister of Tourism, to protect our visitors in particular? Because, I mean,
Yeah.
with all the crime in that area, I mean, it can
Yeah.
be
I mean, put it
difficult.
that way, based on the characteristics of what's happening, we don't see a threat. We don't see it involved there. It seems to be very particular in what's happening. But we're not taking chances. And I announced recently that we are going to reactivate the Rangers unit to make sure that certain areas in St. Lucia are protected, the beaches, the areas where we have mass crowd events and whatnot, just to be proactive. But the characteristic of what's happening are such that it's not spilling over into those areas. It's very localized with its own dynamics. But you are right. We are already thinking of taking actions, and you will see certain actions being undertaken. Thank you very much. And my friend, my very good friend.
The Sahara dust, which has been affecting us, what would you like to say to the solution public in terms of taking the necessary precaution to prevent illness and whatnot, and your concerns?
Well, the doctors, medical professionals, and those who work at the hospitals and the wellness centers over the last few weeks have really been sounding the alarm about the possible negative effects of the Saharan dust. And the chief medical officer and her office, they've also put out a number of bulletins and also warnings, so to speak, about what we should do to protect ourselves, wearing of masks, avoiding certain conditions, especially if you're out in the open, to protect yourself from excessive exposure to the Saharan dust. And these warnings continue. I think you will recall that the chief medical officer and other health professionals have also warned, especially those who have respiratory problems, to do the best that they can to avoid exposure. So it's a general warning that goes out almost every week, and we are hoping that individuals continue to adhere, because it is posing a problem, especially to individuals who already have respiratory issues.
The issues with crime, I'm sure, pose a significant stress on our health sector. Speak to those challenges and what additional resources have we put in place maybe to help resolve them?
Well, certainly the issues with violence and crime continue to pose immense pressures on the medical. Continue to pose pressures. Just a few days ago, I visited some of the doctors and some of the nurses at the St. Jude Hospital, especially in the emergency department. I wanted to speak with them myself to, of course, express support and solidarity. And the reports that are coming out of the hospital clearly indicate that they are under pressure. You can well imagine when you have incidents of violence, whether it be in Vieux-Fort, in Castries, or Soufrière, or Dennery, the nurses and doctors at the medical facilities are the ones, together with the fire service and the police, they are the ones who have to face those situations firsthand. So in addition to the pressures on pharmaceuticals and the professionals, the fatigue and so on, you also have the mental situation, the mental wellness. And clearly the doctors, nurses, those who work as security professionals at the hospitals, those who work in the professionals who do the cleaning and so on, all of it really adds pressure, not just, as I said, on the technical expertise and the clinical expertise, but our mental wellness, the mental wellness of the professionals. What are we doing? I can tell you that in the case of the St. Jude Hospital, over the last couple of days last week, additional security was placed at the St. Jude Hospital. We wish to thank the Special Services Unit of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force. They reacted swiftly to provide additional service. I also visited the Vieux-Fort Wellness Center and had a discussion with Nurse Duncan, who showed me a particular area where you can see clearly that there are marks of obviously the result of incidents, people running around with implements and tools and that kind of thing. So clearly it is a very grave concern to the ministry and to the government. You have heard the Prime Minister speak about the impact of violence on the health sector. And recently, the St. Lucia Medical and Dental Association did put out a statement about the impact of violence on nurses, doctors, people who clean the hospital, security, everybody, the health aides, everybody. It's really a serious problem. And we are working both on the security front, in terms of additional security, but also on the wellness front. What can we do to enable the doctors and the nurses and everybody who work in those situations to have a better grip on their own mental health? When I visited the St. Jude Hospital a few days ago, I saw Dr. Swami, and he did pledge the support of the team to having some sessions with our professionals. So yes, it is an issue, and it is one that we are working with the professionals who deal with.
Is crime being addressed with great urgency when compared to how COVID was dealt with? You know, we saw the PSAs and a number of other initiatives, public awareness campaigns, that sort of thing. But we're not seeing the same reflected as it relates to with crime.
Well, clearly, and the Prime Minister would have, spoken about this many, many times. What the government is doing to address crime, clearly, we have to operate on many different fronts. One of the most important things have to do with support for the police. And the record of this government in relation to support for the police is very clear and very visible. There are other aspects, obviously, social aspects and other things that have to be done. The Ministry of Health, Wellness and Elderly Affairs, all the agencies obviously have to pull together. But this is clearly fundamentally an issue of security and an issue of citizen security and safety for our residents. And the government has done quite a bit to cause there to be change in terms of resources to the police, training and so on. Many areas that were neglected, you can see that the government clearly has worked to improve these areas. We see violent crime continuing, and that continues to be a major issue for the government and obviously the citizens. I'm from VA4, and although I'm the rep for VA4 North, I spent most of my early years in the town of Vieux-Fort, and I know Vieux-Fort very well. I'm from Vieux-Fort, and clearly all the people of Vieux-Fort and the people of St. Lucia continue to be very concerned about what is happening, and I can tell you that the government too is extremely concerned and working with the security agencies and working with the other partners to ensure that there is an abatement to this situation. Your question may be related more directly to the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Elderly Affairs, and I'm sure you recall that if you speak of PSAs, you recall there are several PSAs that the ministry has put out on the issue of violence and how it impacts wellness and how it impacts the hospitals and so on. That is something possibly we need to do more of. But yes, there are PSAs, and I can ask the staff to send you those PSAs, and certainly everyone certainly can do more. But the government is taking it seriously, and we are working with the agencies.
Recently, this I think a child of a centenarian who was a patient at OAEU, she called the talk show. She was complaining about her mother having to pay the bills for her stay. I know we had the Golden 80 program. Could you again just enlighten us as to what is covered under this program and who is covered?
Okay, let me just go over it again. The Ministry of Health, Wellness and Elderly Affairs has addressed this matter, but briefly I will go over it. The 80 Plus program it targets individuals who are 80 years and older, and what it does, it supplies or it offers to these individuals medical attention at our health and wellness centers throughout St. Lucia, the Grocery Polyclinic, pharmaceuticals, doctor's visits, and especially pharmaceuticals when they are available. We know that in the initial announcement, the intention was always for these people to get medical care throughout the health system. We did come out to say that the work with the hospitals continue, because before we can extend the service to the hospitals, we must ensure that we have all the financials in relation to the visits of the 80+ individuals at the hospitals. Are they going for cancer treatment? Are they going for surgeries? Are they going for major medical interventions? And therefore, we will have to obviously prepare in the budget allocations to deal with that, as we have to pay the hospitals for those services. But all the other health and wellness centers, what we call the primary care centers, 80 individuals 80 years and over, do get these services without paying. Some individuals say to you, and I've heard it in the media, that there was never a time when people pay for services at the health and wellness centers, and that was always free. That is not the case. In fact, our records show that individuals who are 80 years and over, these individuals paid certain services and certain pharmaceuticals at the health and wellness centers to an amount of $1.6 million annually. So this $1.6 million annually, we have removed that burden from them. Now, there are cases when the individuals would go to the health and wellness centers and do not get a particular medication. Over the last few months, we had a challenge, and I did speak to this in the press. We had a challenge with diabetic and hypertensive medication. And that had to do with supply chain issues. It had to do with you paying for the medication and then we're not getting the medication on time. But we had some other processes and procedures which caused a lot of this medication to be distributed over the last few weeks. We do not have all of it yet, but something is being done to ameliorate the situation and cause the situation to be much better. There are times when you don't get all of the medication, but this is the policy with the 80+. In the upcoming budget, we should be in a situation in the upcoming budget to explain how we are going to extend this service. Again, all of this is within the understanding and trying to focus on the objective of universal health coverage, where incrementally we are introducing services to different parts of the population. We have said before as a government that we know we cannot implement universal health coverage one time in all departments for everybody. But at the same time, we are not waiting 10 years to begin to offer individual services simply because we do not have all the money to do all one time. That's why we started with maternal and child care. We had some challenges, but most of it is going very well, and we have the results to prove it. We have seen an increase of about 57% of individuals who are coming to the health and wellness centers to get their ultrasounds, to get coupons for the ultrasounds and the blood tests and so on. And we have also seen an increase in individuals accessing services for child and maternal and child care. As we move on to the next budget, you will see allocations for early cancer diagnosis, different kinds of cancers. So our universal healthcare project is moving apace, and the 80+ is a way of bringing in another group of individuals who did not get that service before. And I know there may be challenges, there are some challenges in some areas, but there was never this opportunity for individuals who are 80 years and over. So we have this opportunity now, and what we have to do is to ensure that it's working better and better as we go along. Before I go, I just want to mention, and I'll take the two questions, but before I go, I just want to again indicate that we have with us once again the U.S. Military Medical Mission, who are now at the Owen King EU Hospital. As we speak, they have started this morning, and it is the U.S. Military Medical Mission of the Lesser Antilles, the Lesser Antilles Medical Team. For short, we say LAMAT. And they are here again to perform surgeries free of charge to about 50 individuals, vascular surgeries, especially individuals who are on dialysis and so on. So that is another opportunity for our people to get medical care. And on behalf of the government, I really wish to thank the U.S. Military Medical Mission. And they will be here for a week, so I'm hoping that the press will have an opportunity to meet with them and to speak with them. I also want to say that last week we delivered many pieces of equipment and different supplies to the Rosanna Napoleon Medical Center at the Bodily Correctional Facility. And of course, I was asked by many individuals to explain why Bodily. Why would the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Elderly Affairs have medical supplies to Bodily? Well, for the first time, we have a doctor who is permanently stationed at the Bodily Medical Facility. What does that mean, and why is that important? It's important because if we have a well-established medical center at the Bodily Correctional Facility, you can well imagine there'll be less pressure on the OKEU hospital. Because when you transfer inmates from Bodily to OKEU or to St. Jude Hospital or to the Dennery Hospital for medical care, you know what you have to do? You must have security in place. You must have all kinds of arrangement, and all of these things create pressure on the state. Safety issues, especially with what we see happening, you do not want to transfer patients, some of them high risk, from Bodily to medical facilities, and also put our public in possible danger. So what we are doing together with the Ministry of Justice and the Prime Minister and Minister Virginia Albert Poyot, what we are doing is to ensure that the Rosanna Napoleon Medical Center at the Bodily Correctional Facility is well equipped. So you have, almost raising it to the level of a polyclinic, so that when inmates have issues, and not just inmates, I'm informed by the doctor that there have been situations where people who come to visit inmates fall sick at the Bodily Correctional Facility, and they've been able to get service. So this is another step, we believe, in the right direction for our government. And I wish to congratulate the Prime Minister, Minister Virginia Albert Poyot, Ministry of Justice, and all those, the Public Service Ministry, and also the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Elderly Affairs. All those who are working to ensure that the Rosanna Napoleon Medical Facility at Bodily is well stocked and well equipped. So for the many queries, and I've received many queries about having medical equipment and advanced medical equipment at Bodily, it's very important so that the Bodily Correctional Facility continues to be self-sustaining, so that even medical issues that are semi-complex can be dealt with at the Bodily Correctional Facility. I'll take the two questions before I go to Cabinet. Yes, Barbara.
Listen, in terms of the health services, there's a concern at the OKU, especially the casualty department. There's an allocation of 45 beds, but then you find the waiting area, people on wheelchairs, people. I've experienced it personally, but I don't know for my mother. It's a very tedious process. I mean, the nurses get. Is there something that could be done to alleviate this? Would there be facilitate more beds or more nurses? Because it drags to 11 midnight. People on chairs. People just it's really.
Yes. So I must tell you that the situation at the Owen King EU Hospital is one. It has a history, but I can also tell you what we have done as a government and what we have assisted the Millennium Heights Medical Complex Board to accomplish in the last few months, in the last couple of years. You would know very quickly that the history with the history of the Owen King EU Hospital is an interesting one. You know that we were supposed to have had 5 fingers, and I don't want to go into the history, but a particular government decided that there would not be this additional finger. So we are missing a part of the original Owen King EU Hospital, which means that we do not have the original number of beds that were planned for a facility like this in an environment like the Castries and Castries and Grosilla and so on. Of course, the Owen King EU Hospital serves the whole country, but you can well imagine the intake from the north, where you have the largest slice of the population. It would be a challenge. Now, this challenge, when you speak about people in casualty, the reason for that is simply because at a particular time, especially in the night, you have the health centers in the Castries area are closed. And so if someone has a busted toe or something like that, they would run to the casualty department. Obviously, that's where they can go to. We have the Grosile Polyclinic, which opens up to midnight. So these are the challenges. But what did we do as a government? First of all, we decided to ensure that the Millennium Heights Medical Complex had a board that can look at these issues and to deal with them. And the board has really taken this on and dealt with it. What did the Millennium Heights Medical Complex do with the help of the government? Well, we went to the Victoria Hospital and took a section of the Victoria Hospital, refurbished it, and opened a secondary care unit. And if you go there now, this news has been out, if you go there now, you'd notice that we have a fully refurbished secondary care unit, and this would give us in time an additional 40-something beds, 41, 42 beds, which would free up space at Owen King EU. You move people to the secondary care, certain patients, and you deal with them there. At the secondary care unit, there are some experiments, some wonderful experiments in digital health. If you go there, you'll notice each of the patients has their own tablet, and they can communicate with the staff there using digital processes. You have your pharmacy, and it's nice. So that's one of the answers, to free up space at the Owen King EU Hospital. The second thing which we are going to do to ensure that we deal with the numbers at casualty is to ensure that we, first of all, extend the hours at the polyclinic, and secondly, remove the Castries Wellness Center from where it is and place it at the Victoria Hospital. And we are going to have a Castries Urban Polyclinic, which hopefully will open 24 hours, which would mean that there are cases which should not go to the Owen King EU Hospital, because the Owen King EU Hospital should really be dealing with the more serious cases. So when you have all of these, and our society, we have accidents, unfortunately the violence, and so on, and individuals go to the Owen King EU Hospital, you can well imagine when the emergencies come, the other cases would not, the emergencies would be prioritized. How do you deal with it? The answer is to ensure that we have longer opening hours at the primary care facilities, and we are working on that. In fact, we are almost completed with the refurbishment of the accident, the A&E department at the Victoria Hospital, where we used to call Victoria Hospital, and we are going to move the Castries Health Center to the Victoria Hospital site, and we are going to have less pressure at the Owen King EU Hospital. The third thing that's been done is that the processes at OKEU itself have changed, so there is less pressure on the accident and emergency. Yes, I agree with you. We need more nurses, and a lot of our nurses, and some of our nurses have migrated, and the pressure is there for the nurses. Again, that's a challenge, but what you'll ask me as a journalist is, what is the government doing? What has the government done so far? Let me tell you what the government has done so far. We are working with the Owen King EU Hospital so that individuals who are trained in nursing, you have nursing assistants, you have people who do health aid, and we are trying to see how we can upskill these people so that we can provide more support to the registered nurses. Not for them to become registered nurses, because you have to go through a course and so on, but we are trying to give more foundation support to the registered nurses so that we free them up a bit from some of the duties that they're doing. So all of these we are trying to do. And we are also trying to change the conditions of work, the conditions of service. Maybe there are things we can help the nurses with to encourage more of them to stay in St. Lucia, because they're getting some lucrative arrangements outside. So it is a complex situation, but I think it's important to note that our government has taken concrete action to alleviate some of these issues. The last question I need to...
St. Lucia settled its debt with the Martinique authorities. It's my understanding that monies were owed to the medical facility.
Well, I can answer that quickly. We have not settled our debt with the French authorities. We continue to work with the French authorities to ascertain what the categories of debt and so on. We do have a ballpark figure, and I reported in the Parliament, and I can say with confidence that our government, Prime Minister Philippe J. Pierre, did indicate that was a priority for him, that we need to strengthen the relationship, especially with La Martin and the hospitals in Martinique, because of all of the services that we've received from the French. our neighbors and our brothers and sisters who have always been there for St. Lucia for many years. When we have emergencies and we have accidents and so on, they've always been working with us. Dr. Dabor is here, and so many of them. And so we have this issue with debt. Governments over the years sending people to Martinique, and ordinary individuals being flown to Martinique because of the emergencies, and then some of this debt kept accumulating. At another point, I can give you some very interesting information about the debt, when we had the highest debt and all of that. But what we are doing now, we are committed. I've met with the French ambassador, and I went there. I led a mission there, as you know, in December of last year, to look at the whole situation and to speak to CHUM, the University Hospital of Martinique, and the officials. And I spoke to President Lechimi and all of the other French officials so that we can have a workable solution. But yes, we are very committed to paying down on this debt, because the French are so good to us that we want to show this government. Honorable Philippe J. Pierre has said to me time and time again that we have to show that we are a responsible recipient of the aid. We are not just receiving the aid, we are responsible, and that we are going to make payments. We are going to make payments on the debt.
What's the figure, and has that the situation affected St. Lucians receiving care?
No. As I said in Parliament, we owe over $2 million and over 2 million euros. And what I'm saying to you is, let me just correct this, because I think it's 2 million EC. The figure kind of escapes me. So I can get it for you and give you the exact figure. So we do not see we have not seen any change in how the French have treated us. None whatsoever. There's no change. The only thing, when individuals go there, when non-emergency cases reach them, they would reach out to us to ensure that there are payment arrangements for these individuals. But all emergency cases are treated in the very same way. There's no disadvantage to St. Lucians and so on.
Okay, Minister,
Yeah.
if I may digress, final question a bit. St. Lucians and residents of Beaufort alike are concerned about the nature of the gun violence that we have been hearing about lately. As an MP and a resident of Beaufort, what would you say to appeal to those perpetrators of violence to stop the violence? Well,
as the Member of Parliament for Beaufort North, I have said this before and I'll continue to say that the violence is affecting every aspect of life. This is not just about alleged gang versus gang in the south of the country. This is something that is affecting the entire society. And it's not something that's just affecting Beaufort residents, as some people may think that it is a Beaufort situation, so you isolate Beaufort, build walls around Beaufort, and so on. No, this is a national problem, because today the escalation is in Beaufort, and tomorrow it may be, God forbid, in another part of St. Lucia. What I want to say is that this really is something that is going to the root of society itself, to who we are as a people. Beaufort is not like that. Those people who are involved in these acts of violence and causing Beaufort to have this name, that's not Beaufort. Beaufort has always been a peaceful place, a place of football, of sports and arts and so on. As I've said in Parliament, that is the Beaufort that I know. I mean, Beaufort is not a place of violence and gang warfare. This is something that has developed over the years, and therefore everybody, all organizations, all groups, whether you be business, religious, whoever you are, must come together to see how best we can support the security forces and the police to get the perpetrators and to ensure that our community, the South, turns a page away from this kind of violence. It is a difficult situation. Many people are hurting. Those who have lost loved ones and so on. It's very difficult, and the government is doing its best to assist the police with the resources, and everybody must take this on as if, you know, the future of our society depends on it, not just the future of VA4. Because, again, I warn that there are individuals who believe that this is just a Viewfort problem. This is not just a Viewfort problem. This is a problem the whole society has to deal with. And I'm really hoping that everybody can come together through various means, the social groups, you know, whatever you can do at your level to encourage young people to take on positive attitudes and positive habits, we should do. But it continues to be very concerning for our community.